everybody, my name is Veelia and I'm back with the third installment of my Restoration Shaman guide. In this part, I will be going over all things gear, such as best in slot trinkets, relics, and legendaries. I hope you all find this information helpful, and don't forget to like this video and leave a comment with what you thought. Let's start by going over best in slot trinket choices for Resto Shamans. What I'm going to do in this section is go over some of the best choices of trinkets for our class, explain what makes the trinket good or bad, and recommend my personal top 2 for raiding and dungeons. Let's start with the Vial of Nightmare Fog. This trinket is so good, I don't even know where to begin. The trinket gives your healing spells a chance to apply a spirit fragment, preventing X amount of damage done to the target for 15 seconds. The X just scales with the item's item level. It also doesn't seem to have any sort of internal cooldown, which is probably the main reason it does so much healing or shielding. Even more, it procs off of our hots and our direct heals, meaning most of our spells have a chance to proc the spirit fragment. This trinket is simply one of the best available in-game, and I would definitely recommend taking it in one of your slots if you're lucky enough to have it drop. The next trinket that I'll go over is the Ethereal Urn that drops from Nightbane and Karazhan. This is one of our best trinkets because it's a simple stat stick, and in general, healers prefer stat sticks. The amount of mastery and intellect that we gain for this trinket isn't matched by another with the current gear available. Even if you're not after the mount, or you've already gotten it, I'd highly recommend running Nightbane weekly to try and get this awesome trinket. But watch out, you might have to beat off a few DPS, as its flat high stats make it best in slot for almost any class that values mastery. Next up, let's review Heightened Senses. This is a great trinket as well. Like Vial, this trinket doesn't have an internal cooldown and can proc off of hots and direct heals. Looking at logs, this trinket seems to have a 20% uptime, which is pretty good, seeing as the proc is haste and intellect. One of the issues with this trinket is that you might get the buff at times that you don't need it. Increased haste and int is awesome when you're getting pounded with damage, but almost useless when you're simply spot healing. Since you cannot control the procs, you may not get a proc when you need it the most. However, if you do happen to get a proc at a non-optimal time, try throwing out some lightning bolts or some lava bursts to help with damage. All things considered, this is still a great trinket and a good choice if the previous 2 trinkets aren't available to you. If you haven't started raiding yet, the Naglfar Fair from Heroic Helia is a must-have, and depending on the item level, it's even great when you're raiding as well. Basically, it's a miniature version of the Vial of Nightmare Fog. This trinket makes it so that your healing spells have a chance to apply a shield that prevents the next bit of damage taken for 15 seconds. While the shield holds, the target will be healed for X amount, depending on the item level, every 3 seconds. Another great trinket from dungeons is the Flask of the Solemn Night from Court of Stars. This trinket gives your healing spells a chance to grant 20 stacks of Solemnity for 10 seconds, increasing haste per stack. Solemnity loses a stack every 1 second. It also has static intellect as the main stat of the trinket, which is something that not a lot of trinkets in Legion have, as many of them only have secondary stats, or nothing. Definitely look to pick up this trinket before stepping into the raiding environment. To sum up my recommendations, if you have access to them, I choose Flask of the Solemn Night and the Naglfar Fair to start raiding with. Once you've begun to raid, look out for the Vial of Nightmare Fog and Heightened Senses. And after you feel comfortable running Karazhan for Nightbane, which is definitely not for beginner healers, save a seal for an extra roll on Nightbane, as the Ethereal Urn is a really amazing near must-have static stick for shaman healers. Next up, let's talk about Legendaries. Our 2 best in slot Legendaries, in my opinion, are the Focuser of Janat the Elder and Praetorians Tidecallers. However, because not everyone is lucky enough to get their 2 best in slot legendaries, I'm going to go over all of the legendaries and the positives/negatives of each one. Focuser of Janat the Elder is one of our strongest legendaries. When used properly, a skilled healer can stack the buff 5 times with Healing Wave or Healing Surge for a powerful chain heal. Synced with the Cloudburst Totem, Ancestral Guidance, or Ascendance talents, the buff Chain Heal can provide powerful burst healing, which is perfect since we are one of the most powerful classes for burst and heavy damage healing. Praetorians Tied Collars is also one of our strongest available legendaries. This legendary increases the duration of your baseline healing totems by 20%. This is one of the better legendaries for both novice and experienced restoration shamans, as it doesn't change your typical rotation and just provides a flat buff to all of your baseline totems. It becomes especially useful on mythic content when the raid group is under deep and heavy damage. For example, every fight in Trial of Valor has extended burst damage, and shamans will always benefit from the extra duration when using their totems properly. Next up, there's the intact Nazjatar Molting. For someone who strictly runs Mythic Plus dungeons, I'd say this legendary is your best drop. The improved healing from Riptide on low health targets, when paired up with the Echo of the Elements talent, is very powerful for the quick single target healing that higher difficulty Mythic Pluses require. The Elemental Rebalancers, which just happens to be the only shaman-specific legendary that I have, increases healing done to players in your healing range by 10%. Using this legendary automatically increases the priority of healing rain in your rotation, so make sure to use it on cooldown when sporting these shoes. Also, remember to pair up with the Deluge talent for strong AoE healing on fights with heavy burst damage. Finally, we have Nobundu's Redemption. This legendary causes Chain Heal to reduce the mana cost of your next healing surge by 30%. This is another legendary that is powerful for Mythic Pluses, but also not bad in raids as well. The reason it's not considered as strong as the other legendaries is simply because it provides no direct healing increase. Keep in mind that all legendaries will most likely be an upgrade due to the stat increases they provide, being item level 9-10, so never feel too bad about not getting the perfect one. Finally, let's talk about relics. Before we get into the nitty-gritty of each relic, it's important to understand that relics boost your weapon's item level, which in turn increases the stats on the weapon itself. Therefore, any general item level increase from a relic is going to be an upgrade for you. However, when choosing between two of the same item level relics, there are priorities to consider. The top 4 traits that you should look out for are Queen's Ascendant, Tidal Change, Floodwaters, and Buffeting Waves. For raiding, my opinion would be that Queen's Ascendant and Floodwaters are typically the relics that you want to look out for most. For Mythic Plus, I'd prioritize Buffeting Waves and Tidal Change the most. However, as said before, all 4 of these are great, and any item level increase to your weapon will most likely outweigh most FX. And that'll about do it for this video. Thanks so much for watching all the way through. Be sure to let me know what you thought in the comments below, and if you like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up. For the next episode, I'll probably be going over rotations for both raids and Mythic Pluses. However, before that, I have a few other videos that I want to make, such as top 10 raiding tips and a 7.1.5 Restoration Shaman changes video. So I hope you guys will look forward to those videos, and until then, happy healing! Bye guys!